We had the opportunity to catch up with newly elected SCLC President DeMark Liggins to discuss the importance of Tuesday's election here in America.
But I think what makes this election different is not only do you have these very different candidates, they have very different views on how we see democracy. And we do have an energy and a momentum in this country where things that we perceive to be normal in terms of voting, access to voting, that everybody who's an American gets to vote, all these things that we have just really taken advantage. Taken for granted since the SLC and others were able to do something like voting rights at 65. You see those people trying to move those back. And that is super scary to us, and I think that it makes it incredibly consequential. SCLC's history wasn't about partisanship, like who to vote for. It's important to remember SCLC was part and parcel to making sure that we could vote. And that's what we feel is under attack right now. So it's very much to me a citizenship vote in the sense that we've got to make sure we show up to the polls and make sure that people remember that there's a reason that folks died to vote. Because it's really important to make sure that your voice is heard. One, it's the only place in the country where your humanity is going to be acknowledged. You know, you have to make sure that your citizenship is acknowledged. And the way you do that is you go vote, and you make sure that you can always do so. Beyond that, SCLC was also part of making sure people understood the issues on the ballot. They made sure that people understood that not that we were voting, but why. You hear the stories like a Dr. Lafayette and how he goes into Selma, he kind of galvanizes these different people because somebody was mad at the school system, somebody was mad at, lack of jobs, somebody's mad at the road or whatever it is they were mad about in Selma. And Lafayette's like, look, the one thing that all these have in common is the right to vote, right? And so my point is that we've always, even before folks had the right to vote, SCLC was also part of making sure people understood what the relevant issues are. And I think that if you understand the issues, more often than not, if depending on what type of person you are, you'll vote for a certain type of candidate, right? But I think that we don't have to say that. I don't think that's really our place to say. I think it's important for us to say that you should vote. You should be knowledgeable why you vote. And you need to understand your vote in terms of policy. I would say your vote in terms of intent. And candidly, because we're Southern Christian, in terms of your morality, where do you feel good as a human being that tries to balance where you sit on the side of good or evil? I think that's got to make it into your rubrics on what makes you vote. We're all about nonviolent direct action. I think that SCLC proved that you can bring truth to power and speak truth to power in a way that is both powerful and peaceful, right? And I think we saw that in this country that worked, right? And in many countries that worked because we didn't originate it in India, right? And so understanding that it works, you have to ask yourself, well, why then would someone go back to violence, right? Why would you want to go back to this kind of archaic, barbaric way of trying to make your point? But like most of the times, you can't make your point. That's why you want to fight, because your point's not very well made. People of intellect and people that are on the side of right, they'll just kind of move people like, hey, this is right. And they understand that sooner or later people will see that, and they'll good people do good things, right? And but I think it's really dangerous. I think we see some of the rhetoric that's coming out. This is a extension. I watched January 6th. We know that there were players in that room that wanted to cause bodily harm to people. I've heard the traumatic stories from House members that were there in the room and knowing this wild mob is outside, right? And so it's not just esoteric or theoretical. Violence is real. It causes damage. It causes loss of lives. It causes trauma. It's not something that's just out here. It's a way of life that we don't want in this country. And I'm frankly saddened and I'm fearful to watch people hear that type of conversations and just not reject it on its face. And I would call on anybody to say, wherever you lean politically, if someone's advocating violence, you should be on the side of saying, hey, I'm never going to support that. There's nothing that you're going to say that's going to make me support violence. And to be honest, if you're silent, silence is complicity, right? And so, unless you find yourself to be a complicit person with violence, I think it's incumbent on you to find courage in your own space to say, that's wrong and I don't support it. Please show up to vote, right? That's the biggest thing you do is go. And as you go, please make sure you're in line on time and make sure you look up your cutoff time at your precinct, and make sure that you understand that if any questions happen, you can get a provisional ballot. That's something most states, I think it's Minnesota and Idaho maybe, are the only two that don't have a process for provisional ballots. I think the other 48 states do. So you can always get your provisional ballot and make sure that your vote is counted, but you have to be in the right precinct. If you get a provision in the wrong precinct, they're not going to count it. Or many states won't count it. There's some that do, but it's not worth it. I say show up on time. I would probably say show up early. And if I had to add any 2 cents to that, I would probably find something to timestamp myself. I would take a selfie. I would take something that no one could refute where I was. If I got in line and my cutoff time was 7 o'clock and I showed up at 6:45, I would probably immediately selfie that and send a picture to one of my friends, so that I have both the time on my phone and the phone carrier itself can say, nope, they sent this picture at that time.
Your vote is more powerful than you know. It can make all the difference.
The stakes are high and the legacy's too rich, too much for sacrifice for you to be able to vote, and you have to go do it.